Have you ever wondered if you're just a compassionate person and you care for and validate the emotions and needs of other people? Or have you ever wondered if you're something a bit deeper, something that spans across more than just your interpersonal relationships, but gives you that heightened awareness and sensitivity to all aspects of life? In this video, I'm going to dive into the difference between having empathy and being an empath. I think these things are both spoken about kind of separately, and although there are a lot of different places that they overlap, they are very wildly different in terms of what their true definitions are and how they're experienced person to person. So empathy is when we're able to hold space for and feel the emotions of other people. So if someone has just experienced a loss, or on the other hand, someone has experienced a huge win, you don't just sympathize with them in terms of acknowledging what they're moving through, but you can actually take on the emotion and feel it yourself. If someone loses a relative, you can feel that sorrow and sadness in your heart. Or if someone just landed their dream job or promotion, you can feel that expansion and excitement within you. That's empathy. That is being able to put yourself in the emotional frequency of whatever someone else is experiencing. It's not your experience that is being had, but you can still relate to and understand and feel that emotion. Most of us, ideally all of us, have some degree of empathy. It really relates and works with how we can connect with others more vulnerably and intimately and have that real, true, raw connection with others by being able to see them where they're at and meet them where they are. Being an empath, on the other hand, comes with experiencing those emotions on a much deeper level. It can come from sensing the emotions without necessarily having them expressed to you. You know, when you walk into someone's space or into a space and you can feel the lightness or the density, you can feel the excitement or you can feel the heaviness. You're able to pick up on those little energetic cues without them necessarily even being explained to you or aired out to you or acknowledged by anyone in the room. I've personally noticed this when I walk into different spaces where people have been grieving, or even on certain roads that often get lots of rush hour traffic. I can feel that tension in my body as I'm passing through these spaces. I'm sure a good example is like a funeral home, where you walk in and you can kind of sense that dense energy, that tension from all of the grief that gets carried around in those spaces and kind of gets left behind. Empaths can experience these emotions on a much more intuitive level, where their body is communicating with them what they're sensing and feeling and picking up on in the room. And for some people, it comes through just a knowing, like, oh, there's something dense happening, or there's a hardship going on, or I need to investigate more on this. Or it can be like a gut feeling where you can feel in your vessel either the expansion or the contraction of what you're being moved through. And not all of this has to do with people in the room at all. Sometimes if you go to different places in nature or different stores or even in your own space, whatever energy has been had in that area can kind of linger there. And if you're able to pick up on that without any conversation, with just having your own sense of radar, then that is true empathy. Empaths will feel and absorb the emotions sometimes, and it can almost be difficult to understand if they're yours or not, where empathy, you can acknowledge the emotions and hold space for them and witness them and understand them, but you have that sense of separation between which emotions are yours and which emotions are theirs. I've personally found it pretty interesting. The place I've noticed it the most is in a crowd at a concert, where I can feel all of the heightened energy and excitement around me, and sometimes it'll come off as a twist of anxiety because of the accelerated heart rate. And I'll check in with myself, and I'll even close my eyes for a second and be like, okay, what am I personally feeling versus what am I picking up on? And when I know that I feel safe, stable, secure, and grounded, when I'm starting to feel these heightened, excited, sometimes anxious emotions around me, I'll scan the crowd and I'll see if someone's extra fidgety, or I'll see if someone is super stoked. And it can be pretty funny to realize that I'm just picking up on the energy of someone that is interacting with my field, because we all emit an electronic frequency, an energetic frequency that radiates a few feet around us. And that's why some people, you can feel their density and their sadness that they carry with them, or other people, you can feel their courage and expansion when they walk in the room. That is an empathic sense where it's not being discussed, it's just being received and perceived, versus someone explaining to you what they're going through and you being able to then receive that emotion in your vessel and understand exactly what it feels like because you're feeling it too. The key differences between these two are the scope of where they happen. Empathy can be very situational, where you only pick up on it during dialogue. If someone's venting to you about something or expressing something to you on any range or spectrum of the emotion, and in that specific conversation, you're holding space for that emotion and feeling it as your own. If someone's going through a hard time in a relationship and they're expressing their tension and frustration and restriction to you, you're able to, through that dialogue, pick up on that and hold space for it and know exactly what to say, because you know what it feels like to go through it, even if you haven't necessarily moved through it yourself. Where an empath will navigate this world, and without that sense of awareness of where their energy ends and where the field of what they're picking up on starts, you can be super overwhelmed and overstimulated going to Walmart or the grocery store, because most people are in a rush, in a frenzy in those places. You can be feeling like you just had a cup of coffee the second you walk into a concert venue, because there is so much excitement buzzing around you. Or even when you walk into a church, and you feel that like grounded spiritual essence just by being in the room. It doesn't take any stories, it doesn't take any expression, it just takes you being placed in those different places and settings in order to be able to perceive and receive what's going on. How to know if you're an empath? One of the biggest keys, I'd say, is understanding what it takes for you to recharge. Do you need solitude to recharge and feel refreshed and like yourself again? Because after being in lots of different environments, even if it's just throughout the course of running your errands for the day or going to work that day, do you need time to recharge and regroup in your own isolation and energy so you can know where your boundaries end, and having that void and that space around you to be able to recalibrate and reconnect with your actual energy fields? Another trait is being highly intuitive, kind of knowing things before they happen, knowing something before you're told something, or anticipating things seemingly out of thin air, but with this real much deeper knowing. One example of this would be someone reaching out to you that you've been thinking of. It's no coincidence. You kind of had a sense that you guys were on the same radar, and when they reached out to connect with you, you were thinking about them already. Or being overstimulated in really big crowds, when you're not too sure why you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but knowing that you feel overwhelmed. So do you resonate more with having empathy, or do you resonate more with being an empath? Do you see yourself as someone that is really good at connecting with other people and holding space for and being able to sense exactly what they're moving through so you can give them that support? Or are you someone that can do that to such an extent that can be really ungrounding and really hard to navigate, and sometimes hard to see where you start and end? I'd love to hear where you fall on this spectrum, and it's something that I've dove into a bit recently, just as I'm learning myself and my intuitive gifts and everything, and I find it really powerful to pull out that reflection in others because it's a spectrum, of course. And as humans, we all have a sense of empathy, but not all of us are so in tune and sensitive and heightened to the state of being an empath. And as tossed around as that word is, I think it can be really valuable to get some clarity. So ask yourself, how does it feel? How do you react in those types of settings? How do those settings make you feel? Or those connections with other people and holding space for those emotions? How does all of that make you feel? And what do you think you are? Let me know.